Comments like what, Abe?
One can imagine many comments. I'm not going to share them here, but...
A podcast that fixed not one, but two leaky toilets this week. And it took only 2 days and 3 separate trips to 2 different hardware stores. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
I feel very fancy to live in a house with 3 working toilets.
Lori feels very fancy. Tonight is Monday, March 3rd, 2025. All the way into March, all of a sudden. It's funny, February takes fucking forever. And then you look up and it's March and it's like, whoa, how's it fucking March already? Because we have stupid brains.
Yes.
How you doing, Abe? You have a good weekend?
I'm doing well. Speaking of this March, I have a dry erase calendar, and the month of February and March kind of line up when it's like just 28 days. And so easy correction into March. Very nice transition.
Yeah,
so your dry erase calendar, you have to relabel all the numbers every month.
It is nice. But it also messed up a client of mine who had an appointment on March 28th, but came in on February 28th.
Oh, okay. So
because it's whatever.
Double-edged sword.
Also, I learned that in Ukrainian, the word for February and the word for furious are the same word.
Really? Look at that.
That sounds like a bug in the language model somehow. That doesn't
Maybe
sound
it's
right
why
at
their
all.
war started in February.
That is true, yeah. It did.
Yeah.
Their one war.
Over the weekend, I was just hanging out with some friends, and I don't eat eggs at home.
Do these people even exist, Abe?
they do indeed exist. But, I don't make a habit of eating eggs at home. It's always like a out there thing. And
opposite.
I went on a little hike on Saturday or Friday, one of the days, and we went to a diner, one of these places that has like eggs and stuff. Like, hey, let's go get coffee and that. For 2 scrambled eggs and some toast I just threw in there, $11. Like, I don't know what's going on with the price of eggs, but I have felt it for the first time. I don't recall the last time. I mean, it was probably Waffle House that I went to a place that served eggs, and it wasn't $11.
Well, brunch places.
Almost every place you go to serves eggs, Abe. Have you been to a Chick-fil-A? They've got eggs. Have you? You literally name almost anywhere that you've been in the last year, and you could be like, hey, I know this might be a little bit off menu, but could I get a couple of eggs? And they probably sort that out for you.
That is true.
No, eggs are fucking ridiculous.
Buying eggs in restaurant is so stupid.
I don't know if I sent... I took a picture at the grocery store and then did not send... Because I was already tired of the joke before I made it. But I took a picture in the grocery store of the egg case. And I was going to tag it with, like, thanks Obama or something along those lines. There's a picture of the egg case at Wegmans,
Holy
which is
shit.
like, it's like fucking 6 refrigerators wide. It is completely empty. And all over the front door of the refrigerated section, it says limit 10. Limit of 10 cartons per customer on eggs. And I think my daughter was with me. And she says, who buys 10 cartons of eggs? And I said to her, people who see a sign on the refrigerator at Wegmans limiting them to 10 cartons of eggs is who buys 10 cartons of eggs.
Yeah.
We can also call them idiots. And that went over my daughter, sort of non-reactive to because she's used to my off-putting sarcasm. The person who was walking past us as I answered my daughter in that fashion laughed.
Oh, you got a chuckle out of it?
Got a chuckle out of the passing
Did you tell her
adult.
you have a podcast?
Yeah, I handed her a card. It's brainiron.substack.com on it.
Why don't more businesses use this psychological ruse? Just put limits number of things on everything. Like, you can only
They
get
do.
Fucking sell them all. How do you think we sold all that fucking toilet paper back in 2020? It was like, hey, assholes, you can't come here and buy more than 2 packs of this toilet paper. And everyone was like, how many are in the pack? And they're like, well, I fucking 48 rolls. And everybody went out and bought 100 fucking rolls of toilet paper because Costco was like, you can only have 2.
That's right. Do you think there's anyone out there that's still using up their supply from the peak freak out? I mean, it's
been a while.
It's been 5 years, so yeah, kind of implausible at this point.
The eggs that we buy usually are packs of 18, and they're usually discounted if you buy 2. So it will be, say, a carton of 18 or 2 for $1 less than whatever 1 times 2 would have been, right? And through the years, I pay attention to the price of eggs because I'm buying these 36 eggs roughly once a week. That's about what we go through is 5 or 6 eggs a day in this house because Katie doesn't like eggs, but Calvin and I and Lori all have eggs pretty much every day for breakfast. And then, of course, you have the other incidentals thrown in, what you might need eggs for. We were up to 18 eggs was $7.50, and they had eliminated given you a break on the second 18 pack entirely. So it was $7.50 for 18 or $15 for 36. So that's $5 a dozen, and even though you're buying them at a larger amount, presumably usually in bulk, you get a bit of a break there. That's not nearly as bad as it is in other places in the country. Apparently, like New York, it's like $7-8 a dozen, apparently. But yeah, they fucking roasted all those birds. All the chicken, the egg producing chickens got slaughtered to stop the bird flu, and this is the result. What are you going to do? Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I do want to check on that headline, though, that Lori is talking about.
This headline says Trump pauses military aid to Ukraine after Oval Office argument with Zelensky, and it's acting like it's a new headline. Is that new?
That is new, right?
It said
he
8
had
o'clock
not yet
PM.
paused. He had not yet paused.
Yeah, so that happened.
By the way, you know what I said on Friday evening to you, Lori, when you got home? I said I wouldn't expect the United States to still be funding this war effort in Ukraine by the summer. And you said, what? Why?
Yeah, so this is just new? Let me see.
Trump administration live updates. U.S. suspends all military aid to Ukraine. Ukraine aid. The United States is temporarily suspending all military aid to Ukraine, according to a senior administration official who said the aid would not resume until President Trump determined that Ukraine had demonstrated a commitment to peace negotiations with Russia. The order takes effect immediately and affects more than $1 billion in arms and ammunition in the pipeline and on order. Mr. Trump's directive also halts hundreds of millions of dollars in aid that Kyiv can use only to buy new military hardware directly from U.S. defense companies. The decision comes amid the fallout of a heated Oval Office meeting on Friday between Mr. Trump and President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. That is from the New York Times. Push alert on that news. Not surprising news to me or likely surprising to anyone who watched that debacle that happened on Friday afternoon, or maybe it was Friday morning into early Friday afternoon. Right. I don't remember. If it had been any other day but a Friday, I almost certainly would have insisted that we do an emergency pod, because it was the clip that you sent, and I had already seen smaller clips circulating, and then you sent the 10 minutes at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, because the whole thing was like, 40 minutes? How long was the whole...
It's about 50 minutes from start to finish. And that 10 minutes, the relevant 10 minutes are almost all you need to see, although having since Friday gone back and watched the entire 50-minute sit down there, I do think it is worth watching the whole thing just to get a better idea of the context, because people are going to continue to lie about it. And I know that we live in a time where most people get their news from, I hate to say it, but from assholes like me, who are reacting to the news rather than getting it from the primary source themselves, right? Or by watching the primary source documents. that 50-minute C-SPAN YouTube that I'll have in the show note at brainiron.substack.com, that is the primary source document for history. And everything that I'm going to say tonight is nonsense. You should go watch the 50 minutes and see what you think of it. And then whatever thoughts you have, go find other news documents that can answer your questions, because listening to people talk about what happened during that meeting, and largely specifically listening to anyone who is going to bat for the Trump administration after that, is going to result in you getting a bad impression, a wrong impression. You're going to be lied to if you're going to listen to what the Trump people have to say about what's happened here. Go fucking watch the video. And to talk about it in terms of my personal reaction, I texted the family group chat that 10-minute video that you had sent along and said, I'm not on Facebook anymore, really, and I'm not podcasting until Monday night, so feel free to ignore this, but I have to fucking share it somewhere with somebody. Right. And so I stuck it in the family group chat and said...
And then his mom live texted her reaction.
Yeah.
Oh, actually watching the... Yeah.
This sort of exchange is probably essentially historically unprecedented. And what's happening in this infantile display by the U.S. is really, really bad, and Trump's and Vance's behavior is indefensible. Zelensky is incredibly impressive, and this is all a terrible, terrible shame. Continued siding with Trump is a sign of malevolence or willful ignorance or plain stupidity. Watch the 10 minutes. It will be a fascinating piece of the history of the end of the post-World War II order. And I don't think that is overstated if it is a little bit emotional in its feelings about Trump in the moment. I think that's excusable. But I certainly cannot think of a previous time when what's supposed to be a stupid sit down in front of the cameras and smile and shake hands and make nice in the Oval Office turned into anything like this. It's hard to remember any interaction of a sitting U.S. president with anyone else that looked like this. The closest analog to it, oddly, is a moment in the Christmas film Love Actually, when Hugh Grant and Billy Bob Thornton, playing the Prime Minister of the UK or of England and the President of the United States, respectively, have at their press conference, like Hugh Grant gets his back up because Billy Bob was trying to get handsy with Hugh Grant's secretary or whatever, right? Like, and Hugh Grant is like, hey, we're not here to be bullied. We don't fucking like you, America. And Billy Bob gets all upset. Like, it's that it was cinematic in its unprecedentedness. Right. It was completely out of step with anything I'd ever seen before, which is really saying something considering it's been a decade of the Trump madness. And again, the only other comparable things where you've seen a president act like this is Trump himself, and usually like in a debate setting with another U.S. politician, not with the head of state of a U.S. ally who's currently at war for the future of, in a war of survival for the future of its country.
What I found the whole thing odd is this was supposed to be a signing ceremony eventually, right? Basically, this whole thing is orchestrated to where Zelensky comes in, they do the Oval Office photo op, and typically those photo ops last a couple minutes, right? You have your little picture, they both say their canned statements, maybe they take a question or two, and then they file everybody out except the principals, and then they can have their frank conversation there. And I think there was supposed to be like lunch, and then they would do the actual signing ceremony later. So basically all of this was designed to kind of go in steps, and they just kind of sat in that photo op forever, like you say, 50 minutes long, and they were just constantly peppering or needling Zelensky, and then they would have random people peppering Zelensky with questions. One of them was not even like, I think, a member of the media, just like asking questions like, hey, what about this, you're not wearing the appropriate attire? Just random questions are being sent Zelensky's way. And then eventually there was the snapping of, the way that I think Trump at one point said that, to paraphrase, fine soldiers on both sides, and like who knows how this whole thing started, and maybe this could have been resolved with a peace treaty, like when JD, the vice president, chimed in. Like it seemed like they were trying to get to a point to where Zelensky would respond in a way. Like they were almost kind of like hoping that something like that happened so that then they can pounce. Because otherwise, why would you let the media still be there 30 minutes in before things went sideways?
I understand and sort of half believe this idea that this was a setup of some sort, because it very much eventually feels like a setup, especially given the way that JD acts when he finally starts going on about how Ukraine is not grateful enough and he's not being appropriately respectful of the Oval Office and of the president or what have you. I think, having watched the whole thing through twice now, that it's not a setup so much as it is JD Vance sees an opportunity at some point to, because of the way he sees this, the way that he sincerely sees this is that Zelensky is a pest. Like he does not think that Zelensky and Ukraine, he's not on their side, and he hasn't been for a few years now. And what he sees in this frequently contentious or frequently near contentious back and forth, right? Because there are moments where it feels like things are starting to come to a bit of a simmer, and then there's a moment of levity. Right. Like there's a moment when things sort of simmer back down, like Trump allows for a smile to crack, or for something to be mentioned again that had been mentioned before that was sort of funny, right? And so you can feel it sort of simmering, but it always comes back down until JD Vance pushes everything over the edge. And I think JD just sort of sensed an opportunity for being able to get an emotional response from Zelensky and to get Trump to react in a profoundly, what is to me, a profoundly negative way, obviously. But he knew which buttons to press to allow for the pot to boil over there. And I want to actually go through some of the moments of the video from the beginning, because I don't think it's overstating it to say that this is one of the most wild things that's ever happened in the White House and essentially on live television. And the reaction to it, which I'm sure we'll also get to, but like if you watch the Sunday shows this week, Rubio was on, I think, at least two of them, and the thing that he did, which is fucking shameful, but the thing that he insisted upon is that if this was a Democratic president, if Trump were a Democrat or some other person was here calling for peace, then the media wouldn't be upset at all about what happened in the Oval Office on Friday. If anything, they would just be upset at Zelensky for his lack of grace and his lack of respect for the person who's trying to help him so much. But Rubio's insistence that if this was anyone besides Donald Trump, then they'd be writing up the Nobel Peace Prize papers for him because of what a truly historic and important thing it is that he's doing here by trying to bring peace to the world, is such an absurdity.
I mean, he's a Secretary of State, so he has to carry water for the administration, and this is, I guess, how he thinks he can best achieve that. You don't think that there's any other option for him to go, to say like,
I don't think there's another option to go except to fucking resign. Yeah. Which I don't think is it's not unfucking called for. Right. I'll just say that. We're talking about a country who's a U.S. ally, who's essentially Europe, NATO adjacent, whether we like it or not, right? Because of various agreements that have been made in the past, although largely not upheld, who was invaded by Russia, who is, as far as Marco Rubio is concerned, until fucking 5 minutes ago, one of the primary antagonists that America has on the global stage. The point that I'm trying to get to is that we didn't draw up Nobel fucking Peace Prize awards for Neville Chamberlain, right? We don't look back on Neville Chamberlain as one of the greatest peacemakers in history, right? Yes. And like, what is Trump trying to accomplish here besides something like what Neville Chamberlain was attempting to accomplish?
You have to give context. I don't know who you're talking about.
What is Neville Chamberlain famous for, Abe?
Peace is at hand. He made a deal with Hitler, thinking that it would stop Germany's aggression, and then
This was
Germany
a British person? Or
Yeah,
England?
and then Winston Churchill took over, and then things turned around.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right. Appeasement of the fucking Nazis is what Neville Chamberlain is famous for. He believed that he had solved the Nazi problem in 1938. And just a couple of short years later, it turns out he had not solved the Nazi problem, which is not to suggest I'm not doing the everything I don't like is a Nazi thing, right? But the point is I think pretty clear there, which is that Trump is trying to find peace at any cost, right? Regardless of the underlying legality or ethics or morality here, or of what the aggrieved party, which, by the way, is the people of Ukraine, think or want to happen, right? That is completely immaterial to the project here. The project being Trump's personal glory at having been the one who stopped the war, who stopped the fighting, who stopped the killing, as he's so consistently talking about, as though he's a person who we can believably attribute a sense of great personal, moral, and humanistic injury because he knows that there is killing happening in the world, right? As though that fucking keeps that piece of shit up at night or something like that. Right.
Also, it should be noted that if it were another administration, and this would be characterized as capitulation, not like seeking peace. It'd just be like just sold out an ally for whatever, right? It wouldn't be...
Right. What I wanted somebody to turn around when Marco Rubio is saying, hey, if this was a Democrat, you'd be writing Nobel Peace Prize papers for him, is to say, well, if it was a Democrat, Marco, you'd be on here talking about the end of the last 70 years of the Pax Americana.
Right.
You'd be talking about the end of everything this country has stood for since before your fucking parents immigrated here, right? Like, what the fuck are you talking about if this was a Democrat that you'd be drawing? And does that matter?
Right.
Or does the only thing that matter here, that the media is disingenuous, potentially, that the only thing that matters here is the underlying hypocrisy and not the underlying reality of the situation? Right. You fucking cowardly piece of shit.
Right. And also, I mean, I know you're getting the clips ready to go, but like all the arguments that are being raised are just aimed at deflecting. Like even all of the arguments that I'm hearing about how Zelensky's not the guy, Lindsey Graham was kind of throwing that idea around, and maybe somebody else has to be the guy. But all the issues here have nothing to do with the head of the government, right? If some other guy in Ukraine was running things, this administration would still continue to pursue this objective of just make Ukraine give up whatever land they need to so that Russia can win. I mean, I don't know what difference it would make who's at the top.
Yeah, it's fucking shameful of Lindsey Graham also to start insisting that it's time for Zelensky to step down. I mean, I know apparently I'm a fucking total sucker because I was looking at something that Matt Taibbi put on his Substack today, how this is like the New World Order's favorite moppet or whatever, and how Zelensky is just a mascot for the New World Order, and I'm a fucking sucker for believing anything that the guy says. I don't know where the fuck... Like, I know actually precisely what the fuck happened to Matt Taibbi. It doesn't make it any less fucking disappointing, though. And there's a cynicism... Whatever. I don't want to talk about Matt Taibbi. I don't fucking care. Here's the first clip I'm going to play.
I spoke with President Putin, and we're going to try and bring this to a close. It's something that you want and that he wants. We have to negotiate a deal. But we've started the confines of a deal, and I think something can happen.
The confines of a deal. It's a small thing.
Concept of a plan.
What presumably the word he was reaching for there is the contours of a deal, which is a common phrase that you would hear, a cliche you might hear. But there are a number of times throughout this where, and I don't want to start playing the media is covering for Biden game, like where you talk about how this is a man who's lost his fastball or whatever.
Right.
But there are a number of moments throughout this near hour where Trump says things or reacts to things, and it's weird, right? Yeah. So he says the confines of a deal, that's wrong. In a moment, he's going to say raw earth 7 times in a minute instead of rare earth.
Right.
Like, and the raw materials, like you can sort of see where you would say raw earth instead of rare earth.
He's very stupid.
Well, we don't know exactly how much because we're going to be putting some money in a fund that we're going to get from the raw earth that we're going to be taking and sharing in terms of revenue. So it's going to be a lot of money will be made from the sale and from the use of raw earth. And as you know, our country doesn't have much raw earth. We have a lot of oil and gas, but we don't have a lot of the raw earth. And what we do have is protected by the environmentalists, but that can be unprotected. But still, it's not very much. They have among the best in the world in terms of raw earth. So we're going to be using that, using it for all of the things we do, including AI and including weapons and the military, and it's really going to very much satisfy our needs. So it's something that just worked out really well. We have a lot of oil, and we have a lot of gas, we have a lot, but we don't have raw earth. So this has just about every component of the raw earth that we need for computers, for all of the things we do. And this puts us in great shape.
Pesca did a bit on this last week. Rare earth is just incredibly well branded, right? Like they just had whatever PR team came up with rare earth minerals for the heavy metals that are difficult to mine out of the ground did a good job, right? Yeah. Because it's a catchy fucking phrase, and Trump gets it wrong like 7 times in a minute. It's kind of weird. And then much later on, he misunderstands what Zelensky is getting at when Zelensky says you're going to feel the influence of Russia expanding across Europe, and Trump takes it as like a personal insult, right. like he's telling him how he's going to feel.
That is something that Donald Trump and I have in common. I don't like being told how to feel. But
he's not telling him how to feel.
No,
he's saying the results of what's going to happen in on the global stage are going to mean that we're not going to be able to ignore what's happening in Europe forever. And Trump takes it as you can't tell me how to feel. You're not in charge of my feelings, you jerk.
The fact that Zelensky, this is not his primary language or native language, showed in that moment, right? Because the way he was, like, you can see what he was trying to get at, but the way that Trump took it is like almost kind of as a veiled threat. Like, today it's Ukraine, but tomorrow it'll be America. Like something along those lines. Like, what the fuck, guy? Like, don't tell us, how to
but
feel.
if you're not an idiot, you know what he was saying. It's not like everybody else thought that that's what he was saying.
Yeah. And there are any number of mistakes that Zelensky makes in this hour that are unfortunate and profound and kind of unacceptable given his position at the moment. Right. Not least of which is not having a translator there and trying to do an hour in his broken English. He's not fluent in the language.
No.
He's conversant in it for the most part, and there are moments when he has somebody whispering in his ear the things that when he's confused about something. I think he's getting like quick translations, but he's then responding in English, and it didn't work in the room, certainly. All right, moving on to the next one here.
And I think we're fairly close to getting that, and an honor to have you. And please, I'd like to say something.
No, thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you for invitation, and really I hope that this first document will be first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine, our people, our children. I really count on it.
All right, that was that's 3 minutes into the video or so, and I'm just going to play it again. The literal first words that are spoken by Zelensky during this meeting.
Please, I'd like to say something.
No, thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you for invitation.
So I'm going to ask the expert here. Abe, I'm not sure I heard because maybe it's a broken English problem again. Right. What were the first 2 sentiments expressed by President Volodymyr Zelensky when asked if he would like to say anything? He
thanked Trump, but I guess to some ears, like the vice president, it wasn't effusive enough. I don't know what the problem is, because 30 minutes from now in this clip, they're going to be like, you're not thanking Trump enough, even though he opened with it.
He says not once have you thanked him.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you.
We'll get to that part of the clip later. Skipping ahead here, about 11 and a half minutes in.
And really, we can help Europe because Europe really helped. President Trump said that they made less support, but they are our friends and they are our very supportive partners. They really gave a lot, Mr. President. They did.
They gave a lot, but they gave much less.
No.
Much less.
No. No.
Don't argue with me.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I want to know who says "don't argue." Do you catch the "don't argue" in the background here? I'm going to play it again.
No.
Don't argue.
Trump said it.
I think it's Trump saying it.
Trump said it.
Don't argue there. I wasn't sure if it came from off camera or not.
Whomever is saying it, this is a photo op. I don't know why. I think Zelensky's mistake here is don't take the bait. Like Trump was going to say Trump things. There's no utility in taking the bait. Like, what was the best case scenario for Zelensky here? For Trump to say, "Yeah, I'm a bullshitter. I say things that are not do not comport with reality." He's not going to say that. So it's like, what is to be gained by this line of attack?
I play the clip there because it is sort of the first moment in the interaction where there's a direct contradiction of something that Trump had said.
Yeah.
Trump is insisting that we gave $350 billion and Europe hasn't done hardly anything. For what it's worth, and it's not worth anything, but I found a BBC article on precisely this topic. Has the United States spent $200 billion more than Europe? And, of course, they cite this $185 billion figure, which the Department of Defense, and that the $185 billion is basically adding up everything that Congress has passed in terms of funding Ukraine. There's an outside institute that has calculated that the U.S. has spent roughly $120 billion rather than $185 billion. So there's obviously differing interpretations of how much money has been spent. The $350 billion number is completely made up. It's pulled out of his ass. It's not clear where he got that number from. The BBC concluded that Europe has contributed about 49.5% of the total amount of money that has gone to Ukraine. The United States less than 43%, and other countries around 8%. So all Zelensky is doing there, and perhaps, as you're saying, it is ill-advised, is stating an obvious and true thing. He has entered into the world of bullshit and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, but that's not true." And the reason that he does that here, I'll answer your question in terms of what good does he hope will come of it, is that we had just seen in the week leading up to this, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, whatever the fuck he is of France. Is he president?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Right? Yeah,
President.
President Macron of France. And the new guy from the UK, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the UK, in the White House, both correcting things that Trump said in public, right? And so he sees other world leaders in Trump's orbits, literally standing at a podium next to him, correcting the nonsense that Trump is saying about what's happening in the world and the U.S. involvement in this thing. And what he sees there are people who have had his back and who he needs to continue to have his back if what's happening with the United States is as it appears to be, which is that we no longer have his back, right? So I think that his attitude here almost has to be very slightly contradictory, if not outright confrontational, because to be seen kneeling in total supplication to the mounds of bullshit that Trump traffics in would be to show weakness that he cannot afford to show to the other people who are keeping his country going in the unfortunate event that the United States stops funding the Ukrainian resistance here, right? Like, I think that must have played some sort of a factor here, which is that he cannot afford to look like he's going to be stopping the fight anytime soon if he's going to continue to rely upon money from other sources besides the United States.
Right. It just seems, by all accounts, and especially now that you're looking backwards from today here is Monday, going back to Friday, the decision today to suspend all aid, it appeared that Trump was looking for an out, and this interaction here was giving Trump the out to say, well, this guy's not sufficiently grateful, and so we're gonna just not give him any of the stuff. I imagine that France and the UK and other countries would understand that Zelensky's dealing with Trump, and so like if he lets a few balls get past them, that's fine. You don't need to swing at everything. Just let this moment pass and move on to the next thing.
What percentage of Ukrainians do you think would have seen a version of this hour-long press conference? And my guess is that it's like fucking an insane number, right? Like 75% of Ukrainian adults probably saw coverage of this event, right?
Right.
Is it acceptable as the president of that country to sit there and just suck down all of Trump's bullshit when it comes to denigrating the people who have been helping them withstand this for the last 3 years, when it comes to or drawing strict equivalence between the deaths that are happening, as though every Russian death is just as unacceptable as every Ukrainian death, and that there's nothing behind that, right? Like, I know from a grand galaxy-brained sense, and in the eyes of God, right, each of these souls are worthy of equal moral value. But like in terms of the reality on the ground here, you cannot be talking about the pain that Russians are enduring here in the same way that you're talking about the pain that Ukrainians are enduring here. One of them is the aggressor, and it's not the Ukrainians.
Right.
And so I don't see how, knowing that this is going to be playing in the homes and on the phones of every Ukrainian in his country, he can be seen to be sucking down that amount of bullshit and be able to show his fucking face again. Even if they know in reality, well, that's just the fucking crazy asshole that we have to deal with here, so he was just doing what was best in the hopes that the money keeps coming.
Maybe, but I mean, this whole exercise is exploitative as it is, right? The fact that they're making Ukraine kind of almost beg to have the support continue is not something this is not how you should treat an ally. So the whole thing is messed up to begin with. So just like, I don't think this would have made news in any sense. Like because I think a couple days before, it was agreed that Zelensky was fine with signing the agreement, and he was going to come to do this photo op. If no news came out of this, if it was a 5-minute photo op and they had their lunch and they signed the thing, it wouldn't have made news in any respect. Like even the weird things that Trump was saying would have just kind of came and went, and people would have moved on to the next thing. But instead, here we are.
The reason that this relatively acceptable framework of a minerals agreement or an economic agreement between the United States and Ukraine was at all something that could, in theory, be signed by the Ukrainian president is because he reacted so negatively to the first one, which was disgraceful and shameful, right? The where it was like you give us half of all of your shit in perpetuity because we helped you withstand an attack from an aggressor nation that doesn't believe that you should exist, right? Our friend, you're going to you owe us. The last idiot who was here gave away the house, $350 billion in support of you as a gift, and now I'm going to write you a bill as the next guy in charge, right? It's shameful and disgraceful that was even attempted. And the fact that there was pushback on that resulted in something that made more sense that could actually be signed, right? So again, I say, perhaps the lesson that he's learned here is that you have to push back against this stuff, that it is to his benefit to push back against some of this stuff, because it was to his benefit to not sign that absurdity that was floated the week before and instead end up with a much more favorable piece of paper, which ultimately seems like a lot of nothing if you look at what's actually promised there. Like, it's just the normal sort of agreement between two modern countries about the U.S. is going to buy stuff from them in the future, right?
Right.
All right. Next clip here.
This, to me, is one of the most important things because we have tremendous death taking place as we speak, and I don't want to have that. Think of the parents, whether they're in Russia or Ukraine, think of the parents of all these people being killed needlessly.
They came to our territory.
Should have never started. This would have, if I were president, this would have never started.
I play that clip because if you go watch it, again, brainiron.substack.com or just Google, you can almost see as that's playing out, Zelensky become physically uncomfortable and upset with what Trump is saying there, where he's talking about, imagine the parents of the Russian soldiers and how bad they must feel.
Yeah.
And this is why we have to stop the killing. And this is the sort of peace that we're after. And it's to stop the pain that the Russian parents are enduring, which you say it all the time, but like, who is it that he's choosing to empathize with, right? Like, who is it that he is identifying as the victims here? And over again, it's never his fucking friends, ostensibly, right? It's never the allies of the United States. It's the other guy. And when he says
they came to our territory,
the whole thing is right there. And it's staggering to listen to Trump treat it as though it's just this thing that's happening, right? As though he exists at a complete and total remove from any of the underlying motivations of any of the actors there.
Right. It is weird how it is being treated as if like this whole thing just started, and in some way Zelensky and Ukraine should have pursued peace, as if that was like a thing, like they were attacked. I mean, this happened again 3 years ago. It was on television. It was everywhere. This is not like, at night and no one knew that it was happening. Everybody knew what was happening. The U.S. government was releasing satellite images of the buildup. So it's weird that 3 years later, there's this weird a push to make this seem as if like these two adversaries decided on one day just to start fighting each other, and now we need to find a way out. Like one side did it to the other. One side is occupying 20% of the other country. So it's like those are like basic facts, and it's weird that we're where we're at now.
And if anyone is the victim here in Trump's mind, it is always Vladimir Putin and Russia. Right. And we'll get to some of those clips in just a moment. This next one is the first of a couple of just totally obsequious questions from sycophantic Trump media that really rankle and make me feel super fucking weird about things. And it's never not. And I was watching, God help me, I turned on Laura Ingraham on Friday night just to see, like Laura Ingraham, who I believe once clerked for Clarence Thomas back when that wasn't like when you could say that with a straight face and say that was a cool accomplishment. Right. But a reasonably intelligent person, ostensibly, who has spent the vast majority of her career as a commentator talking about media bias and how the Democrats and the state-run media and all like the Mark Levin line about CNN being state-run media or what have you, to now be in a situation where you're bringing on the president's press secretary and having a laughy back and forth with her about how awesome Donald Trump is. Like, that is just state media. That's all that you're doing, Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity, in your ceaseless admiration for and praise for everything that Trump does, and this insistence that he can do no wrong. It's never not going to amuse me that you spent your entire career complaining about how the media sucks up to Democrats, and now you just have on the press secretary of the president because you just can't get enough of sucking power's dick, as it turns out. All of the complaining that you did about media bias for all of these years was apparently just rage-filled jealousy at not being on the right team, right? You're watching MSNBC fillet the president, and all you can think is, man, why can't I get me some of that dick, right? That was actually what underlied what appeared to be, if you were an idiot enough to believe them, a true-hearted critique of media and power. And actually it wasn't. It was just fucking petty jealousy.
Mr. President, I've got two questions for you. You think ultimately your legacy will be the peacemaker and not the president that led this country into another war and ended foreign wars? And I've got a question.
I hope it will. I mean, I hope I'm going to be remembered as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing if we could do this. I'm doing this to save lives more than anything else. Second is to save a lot of money, but I consider that to be far less important. So I hope I'm going to thank you, Brian, for that question. It was a nice question.
Mr. President, are you a great president or the greatest president of all time? Oh, Brian, thank you. Thank you for the question. What a wonderful question. What the fuck is that guy doing in the goddamn room is my first question. And the fact that he feels the need to surround himself with these fucking people who are going to ask these sorts of so-called questions is further proof of his utter shamefulness as a so-called leader. The same guy, by the way, pipes up at the end of Trump's rambling and incoherent response to being asked if his greatest legacy is going to be as a peacemaker, to ask Zelensky the following.
If we didn't win, I think this could have very well ended up in a third world war, and that would not That would not have been a good situation. What was your second
And
question?
my second question for President Zelensky, why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest, why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not
Really?
respecting
I
the
don't have
dignity of this
such-
office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one.
Maybe something like this?
something like
Yes,
yours.
sir.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Maybe something better. I don't know.
Yeah.
We will see. Maybe something cheaper than yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to play it again. Listen to the laugh in the background. I'm 90% sure that it's JD Vance's laugh, although I cannot be certain because the camera angle doesn't allow for that.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's JD Vance's laugh. My question for Brian, for everyone, and for JD and for the reporter asking this question, for everyone who's complaining about decorum and respect and grace and gratitude, is there any of that in the way that this question is asked, in the tone of voice with which it's asked? This fucking piece of shit who's been handed a microphone is asking the leader of a country that's been, again, fighting for its very survival for the last 3 years, why he doesn't wear a suit, which is, it's a question asked in bad faith, because if you just Google or if you've just read anything in the news at any
doesn't do
point
that.
in the last 3 years, you would know, which he almost certainly does, which I will say with absolute certainty, rather, that he knows that he wears the Trident sweatshirt in solidarity with the troops on the front lines. He doesn't feel it's appropriate while his country is at war for its survival to be dressing up in a costume, as he says, in his slightly charming lack of a good English sort of way. But listen to the laugh. I'm pretty sure it's JD.
In senior year of high school, we had stupid mock Congress. Is that what it's called?
Sure.
And I had to do my stupid bill, and I presented whatever, and fucking Alec Corso in the back asked a question like that. It was something so not having to do with anything. It was just like, hey, are you okay? And that I've never heard anything like it until now.
According to the New York Times, this guy is Brian Glenn. He's a correspondent for Real America's Voice, which I've never heard of, a right-wing cable channel that has spread conspiracy theories, and they distributed Stephen Bannon's War Room podcast. He was added to the press pool just this past week. Like, they've been making some changes, laxing the rules in some respects and then tightening it on the other end. And so he's in the press pool, and this was his two-parter. A lot of people are there. There's a wider shot of all the press, and it seemed like Trump deliberately went to him to kind of tee it off. Like, hey, hey, random guy, you have a question for me and Zelensky? And this was the result.
Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
The chuckle sounds like JD Vance to me, don't you think?
I can't.
I'm not.
I don't have any other clips.
I don't know what he sounds like.
Yeah.
It's on mic. There aren't very many
Yeah,
other people who are
that's the
close
thing.
enough
And
to be on mic.
it seemed like your boy Rubio was disassociating from this whole meeting. Like he's there just in body. But so I don't know who else. I think the Treasury Secretary was there too. But Jade, if it's anyone that's mic'd or near a mic, it would have to be him.
Anyway, obviously the way that I phrased the question was ridiculous, but the total lack of respect for this guy on display, just in the question asking, and then also in the laughing about it, if it's JD Vance, as I suspect that it is fucking disgusting, right? And then for what happens about 20 minutes from now to unfold, following that display of lack of respect is really quite something. All right, I'm going to skip to the next incredibly over-the-top dick-sucking question from a member of the so-called media.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you. You hosted Macron and Keir Starmer at the White House this past week, both of whom praised your courage and conviction to lead the pathway towards peace.
Yes.
Part of that involved, though, re-engaging Russia in diplomatic relations, something that previous leaders lacked the conviction to do so. What gave you the moral courage and conviction to step forward and lead that?
Well, I love this guy. Who are you with?
One American News, sir.
Well, that's why I like him. One American News does a great job. I like the question. I think it's a very good question.
What gave you such moral conviction and courage, sir? How is your dick so big, Donald Trump? Please describe it to me in all of its glory. And who bequeathed such a thing upon you, or did you invent it yourself? Was your dick self-made, sir? Will you tell me more about your wonderful and amazing dick, sir?
It literally does sound like state media asking questions.
Yeah.
Could the White House press secretary write the question any better?
Right.
And if I can't imagine how she could.
Actually, now that come to think of it, like even the most left-leaning mainstream conventional media like reporter, has anybody framed a question in such a way? Like that seems to be so outside of like, even if you were trying to tee it off like, you're thinking outside the box, or you're trying something other, like, but just the fawning it just seems kind of like have a little dignity if you're asking that question.
I asked this question that you didn't like because I wanted to know if you want to position yourself in the middle between Russia and Ukraine, or on the Ukraine side.
No, I'm in the middle. I want to solve this thing. I'm for both. I want to get it solved. And it's wonderful to speak badly about somebody else, but I want to get it solved. If we can solve it, great. If we can't solve it, they're going to have to fight it out, and who knows what's going to happen.
It is wonderful to speak badly about somebody else.
I'm for both. I know it's just 3 words. I know he's not careful with his words, but I am for both. When the both are, on the one hand, Russia and Vladimir Putin, who's been, I won't say unelected dictator of Russia for 25 years, but certainly not democratically elected autocrat in Russia for the last 25 years, the nonsense Medvedev interlude notwithstanding. And the other end is a man who was duly elected and is an ally of the United States. It's sort of ridiculous that you have to keep saying it, but he says I'm for both.
Right.
And
I'm for both.
What?
It is wonderful to talk bad about somebody. It's very therapeutic. We have 2 things in common. We don't like being told how to feel.
But a lot of cities have been destroyed. There are a lot of cities that are not recognizable. There's not a building standing.
No.
And a lot of
things
Mr.
President, you have to come and to look. No. We have very good cities. Yes, a lot of things have been destroyed, but mostly cities alive, and people work, and children go to school. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes closer to front line, children have to go to underground schools or online, but we live. Ukraine is fighting and Ukraine lives. This is very important. And maybe it's Putin is sharing this information that he destroyed us. He lost 700,000 people, 700,000 soldiers. He lost everything. Yes.
Again, maybe I'm a sucker. I am so incredibly impressed with Zelensky at almost every turn. And for him to see that, to have the president insisting that Ukrainian cities have been reduced to rubble and utterly destroyed by this war, when he knows that that's not the case, that there are people in his home country, as the men and boys on the front lines fight for survival, going about their lives and living in this awful reality of being under constant threat and constant attack, but going about their lives. Children going to school underground, people going about their business, cities where people are just living their fucking lives, humans like everyone else. This isn't fucking Gaza we're talking about, right? Like, it has not been reduced to nothing. There is something still worth saving here, a way of life worth fighting for, right? And that goes, whatever. I start to get highfalutin sometimes, but I just so completely appreciate the way that he handles himself here. And I know that it was not diplomatically the right thing to do. I know that it was ultimately the wrong thing to do, to allow himself to be baited into contradicting the asshole. But like, I just appreciate when somebody can sit in a room with him and tell him the truth. It's not unlike, this was as close to a feeling as I've gotten to that Chris Wallace interview in the middle of the Trump first presidency. I think towards the end, maybe of the. Although it was it post-COVID? I don't know. It doesn't fucking matter. Chris Wallace did a terrific Trump interview that was unlike almost every other of
the man-woman camera.
I don't know if it was man, woman, camera, person, TV, or whatever the fuck. But he like every time Trump told a ridiculous lie, Wallace would simply say, well, no, that's not true, Mr. President. I have the information right here on this piece of paper. And he would sort of chuckle at how ridiculous it was that Trump was saying that this other thing was true when it was not, in fact. And it's just to have him be able to sit there and in a composed sort of way, despite the language issues, the language barrier, be able to simply state his case and to tell the simple truth in the face of utter nonsense it's just super fucking impressive to me. And it's a wildly important message that he's trying to deliver here. So I can't be too mad at him for ultimately doing the wrong thing. Because you cannot please this fucking clown. Nothing that he does here was going to be right or good or correct.
But once again, I keep going back to this. We are now in this point of this Oval Office meeting, 33 minutes in. Like, how long do you need a photo op for? I just don't understand why they're. And sometimes, whenever they do a signing, they'll have a press conference after that. Maybe you'll take more questions after the thing that you came to do is done. But I just don't understand the sequence of events. I don't know why so much. It just seems like they're like, let's just be in this room with like way too many people and harass this allied president to the point to where he's going to say something because we're saying so many things that are not true in his direction. Eventually, he's gonna respond, and he did.
Because Trump just he loves sitting here in front of the media and answering questions, right? Like whether it's somebody who's doing the dick sucking routine that he obviously gets a great big kick out of, or it's somebody, Caitlin Collins is going to be an example here in the next clip, that he can get mad at and pick on, right? Like it's like his favorite fucking thing is to produce television in this way.
When did you last speak with President Putin, and what did he say that?
A couple of days ago.
And what did he tell you that gave you the assurance that he wanted peace?
Well, that's what I do. My whole life is deals. I know pretty good. And I've known him for a long time. I've dealt with him for a long time. He had to suffer through the Russia hoax. You know, Russia was a hoax. It was all Biden. It was nothing to do with him. So he had to suffer through that, and he was able to do that. I think that he wants to make a deal, and he'd like to see it end.
I set that part of the clip up wrong. That was obviously not Caitlin Collins. That was an example of Trump going on for some 30 seconds about how Vladimir Putin is the real victim here.
That is very bizarre. What sort of cost was inflicted on Putin based on domestic issues happening in America? Like, what is he getting at there?
Also, he can stop it. He just stopped bombing them. Yeah. It's very easy.
Well, but the bombing is only happening because he was such a victim of the Russia hoax or something like that.
Sure, but now the only person who can stop it is him.
Every single time Trump has talked about the Russia hoax, it is in the context of defining himself as the grand victim of a massive Democratic and media conspiracy. And now he has transferred that amount of victimhood onto Vladimir Putin, which is super fucking weird that he imagines that both he and Vlad Putin were equally victimized by the Russia hoax.
The agreement will protect him. The agreement, yeah, we're signing an agreement.
You know? Right, but what if Russia tries to invade or there's Russian aggression in response?
I just told you I don't think that's going to happen. And if that were going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal. If I thought that was going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
You know, they ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions. Focus on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings, I don't think they're going to survive. Let's go. Yeah, please, go ahead.
So that's not Vance laughing. So there's some chuckle.
Are we sure that's not Vance laughing?
There's some chuckle fucks there. I don't know if that seems to be beneath the dignity of a vice president to be laughing there, right? About CNN's ratings.
I don't know about that as a concept.
Beneath the dignity of a vice president, but not this vice president.
That to me, I mean, CNN ratings. I guess maybe he's just such a toady. But
I think.
Do you know what's in my notes, Abe? What? My question at the end of this clip is he that much of a toady? Referring to J.D. Vance, and if that's him laughing there.
There's got to be another. There's got to be another angle to see who's doing all this laughing.
It's a good question by Caitlin Collins, right? Because the framework of the deal is contingent upon Ukraine getting access to parts of their territory that are currently under Russian occupation, because that's where a lot of the minerals are. And so if the U.S. is going to send contractors in or otherwise, like presumably if we have such a material interest in what's going on there, we would have observers of some sort there. If Russia attacks them there, is that considered an attack on the United States? Like, what the fuck are we going to do? And his response is to say, well, Vladimir won't attack because I'm the president, right. Which somebody should tell him he won't be after 2029. And so, but Vlad will presumably still be around there, assuming he goes on to live in good health. So it's a pretty good question, and all Trump has to say in response is, you shouldn't worry about such things. You should be worried about your ratings. Right. And then at 38:17, which is where we are here at the end of Trump's response, is essentially the moment where things, I think, really go off the rails. And I think that this is the thing that J.D. Vance actually identifies as the disrespect and the lack of gratitude that's happening in the room. And notably, it has nothing to do with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, but rather is this Polish reporter who asks the next question.
I already mentioned Poland. Poland was under Russian control for decades after the Second World War. When I was a kid, I looked at the United States not only as a most powerful country, richest country in the world, the country that has great music, great movies, great muscle cars, but also as a force for good. And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal? That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America. And for the good of the world, I'm aligned with the world. And I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Obviously, the rest of this plays out in the way that we've seen. The last 10 minutes of this is the money 10 minutes, and I don't think there's any reason to play the whole fucking thing.
Do you think things would be different had he just let Vance say that? Because I think like Trump was saying that this was like the last question or maybe one more question, but basically they had it end because it was already contentious as it was without the 10 minutes of a circus. But like, do you think that the rest of the day would have gone the way it was planned? if it weren't for these last 10 minutes?
I don't know. Zelensky seemed pretty insistent that there be at least one sentence in the agreement that he was going to sign that gestured in the direction of a security guarantee.
Right.
And they spend the next 10 minutes talking about how a security guarantee is not going to happen. Right. So maybe this preempted an inevitable falling out that was coming anyway, right? It was going to fall apart regardless, because Zelensky obviously wanted language in this about a security guarantee, because as he's going to say, well, fuck it, I'm just going to play it.
Okay, so he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I answer?
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. you have a damn good chance of coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid
thank you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
Yes. What about West
if
Virginia?
you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I
Again,
tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times thank you to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I
over
understand,
there.
sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low
President.
on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're
I
saying
said-
you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
that
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
But this
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry, here.
It's going to be a tough deal to make,
Um,
because the attitudes have to change.
what if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you
but
saying?
what
She's
if
asking, what if Russia
Putin
breaks the
breaks
ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
broken ceasefire.
What if they broke it?
Many
I don't know.
times.
They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
But all-
Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that.
This insistence that you have to be utterly deferential and obsequious, because they're not asking for respect. He's been nothing but respectful. What they're demanding is that they swallow that he swallow the bullshit, and that would be a sign of respect. That it would be a sign of respect. And I keep going to the unfortunate blowjob analogy. But how is it anything but a removal of one's pants and demanding that you put it in your fucking mouth in order to show respect? And you don't, I'm sorry, but you don't do that to someone on camera in front of the entire American media and the rest of the global media that's also paying attention and pretend like that's your fucking friend, because that's not the way that you treat a friend. And it's like, it's super fucking clear to me. And all of the coverage afterwards about how Zelensky came to the Oval Office and lectured the President of the United States. I'm sorry, it's not a lecture when someone is plainly wrong about something to gently explain the ways in which reality contradicts the thing that they had just said, right? This is not a child who's watching the emperor run by in the parade with no clothes on who shouts, "Why is the emperor naked?" This is a person walking up to the emperor with a blanket and putting it over his shoulders and saying, "This is the actual way of the world." And the fact that everyone around Trump and Trump himself is so offended by the fact that Zelensky is gently trying to cover his nakedness reveals all of the rest of the fucking nakedness, right? Like it's and I said that my children at the dinner table on Friday night that for all of the faults that this country has in its history and all of the various ways in which I have felt shame for the way my country has behaved in the past and throughout my life as well at various times, I've never thought, holy shit, we're the bad guys, right? Like at no point, I mean, have we done despicable things? Have we done things of which I am ashamed? Yes, over and over and over again, right? But at no point did I think, holy shit, we're just the bad guys now. And after watching this press conference, after watching this hour, and then listening to some of the response to it from Republicans in MAGA world, I had no choice but to conclude that we're the bad guys now. And that fucking sucks, right? Like that's fucking terrible.
This could just be like a bad period and things will change down the road. But this is I mean, it's not only this Oval Office meeting. There's also like today with the halting of aid. And there's also over the weekend, I don't know if you caught Face the Nation with there was
We watched all of the news.
Look here now, Abe. I never miss Maggie Brennan's Face the Nation.
We love Maggie Brennan in this
Brennan
house.
had a bunch of people on, but the one in particular.
Sometimes that like Robert Costa, who like he shaves like 8 minutes before he goes on the air, and he already has the little bit of growth, and he gets a little sweaty in his mustache area. I can't always watch it when Bob Costa is hosting, but if it's Face the Nation with Maggie Brennan, I'm not missing it.
Congressman Mike Turner was on, and there was this weird moment where it was like near the end of the segment with him, where she asked them like, "Hey, there's this reporting from I think the Post, and then the CBS News also confirmed that the U.S. is basically standing down when it comes to cybersecurity against Russia." And he was like flabbergasted. He's like in the intelligence community, so he in Congress. So he was kind of phrasing it in a weird way, where he was saying that based on what I know and what we know about Russia's actions, that's not possible. Or that's not true. Basically, he was dismissing the report, and it seems like since then there's more reporting confirming it. I think that the Department of Defense has come out to say that they are in fact removing Russia from the list of countries where they're keeping an eye on, I guess, to focus on China.
Right. They're not going to do any like active offensive measures against offensive measures by the Russians.
Right. So, which suggested that I mean, we should know this by now. There's like no coordination with Congress. Everything's just being handled by the White House. They're doing things that even like their own party members are not aware of, to where they can go on television over the weekend and say like, no, that can't be true. Are you kidding me? Do you know what Russia's doing? Like, there's no way we would stand down. And that's what we're doing. So all of this, I'm wondering,
why would you try to coordinate anything? Because 8 seconds later, he's going to take another dump.
Right.
And you're just going to have to describe the dump as true and good. So there's no coordination that happens, because the moment you send out marching orders, the marching orders are going to change. Right? So it's just literally whatever the last thing he fucking tweeted or the last thing that he did that becomes the new reality for everyone. So of course there's no coordination. All that matters is what most recently came out of his fucking mouth.
right.
I want to play the laugh again because I have some outside evidence that might help us determine whether or not we're listening to J.D. Vance.
Survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions. Focus on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings, I don't think they're going to survive. Let's go. Yeah, please, go ahead.
All right, so there's a right, that laugh there. Let's see. I found this clip of J.D. laughing.
When people are like, what does your husband do?
That sounds like the same laugh to
It
me.
is, yeah. I mean, it's.
That's almost certainly this. That's who's laughing in the background.
just the
I will
mic'd-up
search
thing.
around for another camera angle and see if I can find coverage of that moment from a wider angle. But I think it's JD. Not very respectful from a man who's claiming that all that matters is showing respect. Tell me, Abe, that my reaction to this as an unprecedented moment and bad moment in American history is over the top, that the shame and disgust that I felt watching this go down, and that my respect for Zelensky, that all of these feelings are entirely misplaced and that I'm missing something.
No, I think your reaction is appropriate. I will say, even though, as you indicate, the Zelensky is in the right, it served them nothing to do this. Basically, just eat the shit and move on, and then live to fight another day. Because by all accounts, like I keep on saying, I think Trump wants this outcome, to say Zelensky's not playing ball and I'm going to halt aid. And that, I mean, I don't know. You know, what's interesting is on Tuesday, we're recording here on Monday. On Tuesday, there's going to be the address to Congress. This is, by the way, less than 2 months into the new term. You have a united government. So it should just be applause galore for one side of the chamber tomorrow night, right? But whenever it gets to the topic of Ukraine, it'll be interesting to see what the reaction will be, because, like, if he takes some pot shots at Zelensky, I can see the Republican side being okay with that, because they can point to, oh, he was being disrespectful. But when he gets to the part about halting aid and I don't know if he's going to mention the cybersecurity part, but the halting aid, that doesn't seem to have a lot of support on the Republican side, unless people are just, this is a new day and just whatever our leader says goes. I don't know what the reaction will be. I'm not saying they're going to boo him, the Republicans, but I'm interested in just that part, because everything else will just be like, hey, great things are going to happen, blah, 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 blah. But when it gets to the part about Ukraine, about halting aid, what's the logic behind that? It just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know how that's going to be received.
Well, he can come back when he's ready to make peace, apparently. And peace means just assenting to whatever it is that Trump and Putin have come up with. I would love to know this sort of pushback that he gives to Putin when he's having one of his hours-long powwows with Putin over the phone. I have trouble imagining that there's a great deal of confrontation and conflict in those conversations. But of course, we don't even get readouts of how those things went, so we can't possibly know.
And also, I mean, what's the concession on the Russian side? They're keeping all the land that they got, right? I mean, like, it seems like it's total. Basically, you're kind of stopping the bleeding. The best way you can put it for Ukraine is like Russia's not going to take any more land, which you can't believe, because they'll just redouble their efforts down the road and try again. But, like, is that it? Basically, the halting of fighting, like, that's Russia's concession. They're not going to give up any of the territories that they gain.
I don't think we have any idea, but I would imagine. I mean, I think that the Russians have said that they're not going to give up any of the territories that they've gained.
Right.
It's worth noting that the reaction by the Russians to this whole thing was to delight in the fact that Donald Trump is on their side now, right? Like the Russian foreign minister was fucking thrilled with what happened here.
I mean, yeah, that tally in the UN, right? Was it like Russia, North Korea, America? Like, it's just like, what is happening? If somebody was they always, this joke is always made about somebody being in a coma and waking to a new world. But, like, if it's like, what is going on? Like, what's happening?
Right. After this all went down, Trump posted on his social network. Let's see if I can find the right quote here. These fucking news articles that they don't like for whatever reason, I mean, I know why. They don't like linking to Truth Social. So, like, in order to find Trump's Truth Social posts, you have to go directly to the source, and they only they will link
He
to
puts
fucking
them on Twitter.
anything in a news article, right? Like they'll link to a fucking Wikipedia page if that's where they got their source from. But for whatever reason, it says in this Washington Post article, during the meeting, Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance accused Zelensky of being insufficiently grateful for U.S. support to Ukraine in the war with Russia. Zelensky is not ready for peace, Trump wrote on social media. He said Zelensky had disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office and can come back when he is ready for peace. That paragraph should have within it a hyperlink to the source document, because every other fucking sentence in this article has hyperlinks to the source documents, but they have this fucking thing where they're not going to link to the source document because it might enrich Trump in some way. And it's like, I'm sorry that this is the world that we live in, but fucking link me to the source document. And Google, when I Google this up, I want the fucking source document. Don't hide it from me somewhere 40 down in the goddamn replies because you don't want to, for whatever reason, send people over there. I know it's full of misinformation. I know it's all bad, but I shouldn't have to become a fucking subscriber with an account.
You can go to Twitter.
To Truth Social or Twitter or anywhere else if what I want are the direct words of the President of the United States. I'm sorry that it enriches him in some back-assed way. That it's just the reality of the goddamn world. Don't make me do all this fucking extra work.
Is that why they're not looking? I imagine that it violates whatever guides that they have as far as how they present the story. If they're referencing something, if they're always linking to the thing, like, you should continue to do that. It is interesting that they themselves would go there to create the story, to write on this story, but not link it. I don't think I've ever noticed that, actually. Now that you mentioned it. So there's not even a screenshot or anything? It's just like...
No. And I encourage you, anytime you're looking at an article on Washington Post or New York Times, and there are numbers of other outlets that would usually include either an embedded tweet or a screenshot of the thing or a link to it, they will not be there. So now I have to go scrolling through this cocksucker's Truth Social feed to find the thing that I want to talk about. All right, this is the Post. A statement from President Donald J. Trump. We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. The most important line in that post is he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. And my question to the group is, shouldn't it?
Yes. Also, not only is that so, what does this mean? He's saying that I'm going to let Ukraine suffer more so that Zelensky has a weaker hand so that I can extract what I want to extract from him. Like, it seems like he thinks that he's in good shape, and I'll show him that he's not by withholding aid, thus hurting Ukraine's ability to fight, and more people are going to die, and then maybe that's going to get him back to the table. Like, it seems like that's the thinking here.
I feel like I want to play fill in the blanks with Donald Trump, well, not Donald Trump, but any Republican with two brain cells to rub together. And I want the blanks that I want to fill in are Russia is like, it's a child's third grade test, right? Russia is America's blank, right? And it would the correct answer for any right-thinking individual in the world, adversary, right? That would be the word that. And then the next question, Ukraine is America's
ally.
Blank. Ally. Very good, Abe. You passed the third grader's test. So the third question in this run of question is, if Ukraine is America's ally and Russia is America's adversary, who should benefit substantially from having the support of America in any negotiation?
The ally.
the ally, Ukraine. What the fuck is... He thinks that our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations, and that somehow it shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, who is he talking to there? The only person on the planet that he can possibly be talking to is Vladimir Putin, right? He must be trying to satisfy Vladimir Putin there. And for reasons that I think it's ridiculous to assume are related to a P-tape or are related to some other compromat or are related to anything else except his own personal damaged psychology, right, at this point. But I don't know. I don't know.
To me, it almost doesn't even matter what the story behind it is. It is a very reliable indicator. No matter what happens, the decision that Trump will reach will somehow be to the benefit of Russia. It's a constant recurring thing. And it's very weird.
All right. Anything else to say on this, Abe, before we move on to something a little bit lighter?
No, I do wonder how this all shakes out. I mean, I don't know what...
Bad.
It's going to be bad, but it just seems like I don't know what the plan is going forward. I don't know how his...
The plan is for China to take over. That's the plan. It's the only logical plan.
I know you keep saying that. It's not the plan. He believes that we can be isolated in this hemisphere, basically, right? That the North American continent we can exert our influence here and not worry about Europe and be fine, and that China can exert its influence there and not worry, and we don't have to worry about it, and it will be fine. Again, I mean, it sounds like whatever, you don't have to say it, but like it's super fucking lame and weird that he doesn't have an understanding that Europe being a peaceful place that is not under constant threat of aggression by Russia is good for the United States, right? Why do you have to say that out loud? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Like, we did a whole world war because the European continent, not just one either, two of them. In relatively recent human memory did we do this. There are still people who are alive, not very many, from the First World War, right? Like, none of them who fought in it, but like somebody's alive somewhere who's 120 fucking years old somewhere on the planet.
No, I was going to say I doubt it, but yeah, I'm sure that's possible.
No, there are people. I know that you
Someone
have.
in China.
I know you've got a list.
That person's in China, and you know it.
Don't ask me how I know this, but...
And I guess, again, thinking back to what Taibbi had posted earlier today, I guess it makes me a sucker for the New World Order. But, like, actually... if what we mean by the New World Order is the relative peace and stability
world order
of the last 75 years, then maybe I am all for it.
A thing that benefits Russia, like thinking ahead now, is for the U.S. to leave NATO. So by this summer, Bob, do you think that the U.S. is going to leave NATO, or is that an alarmist prediction?
That is quite an escalation of my insistence from Friday evening that the United States would no longer be offering material support to Ukraine by the summer, and that any friends that we have working in Ukraine at the moment would likely be home in time for the Midsummer Classic. I don't think so. Like, I don't think that we will withdraw from NATO, and but I guess it's plausible.
Is there
at
any
this point.
argument for doing something like that that is not related to benefiting Russia? Right? It just seems like that's the only...
Well, it would be framed as an America First thing. We're not going to continue to contribute our treasure to the security of Europe when they won't take care of themselves, right? Like, that's how it will be, how it would be framed. I would be surprised. That seems like too far a thing, right? Like,
I mean, we're
at the same time, that I don't
yeah.
see it happening that we withdraw from NATO. It is also utterly inconceivable to me that a Russian aggression against Poland would result in the United States committing to upholding Article 5, right? Like, at the same time that I say I don't think we're going to withdraw from NATO, does anyone believe an attempt to call up Article 5 as a result of an attack on a NATO nation would be honored by the United States? Like, I highly doubt it also. So maybe in that sense, I'm saying, yeah, it's plausible that we'll be out of NATO by the summer. I don't know. I know that Trump will blame Joe Biden for whatever happens this summer.
And enough people will buy it. Like, just no matter what. It's like, oh, okay.
All right, Abe. I don't like to do this to you, but I need you to close your eyes for the next 3 seconds or so. Because
Do I need to?
No, but I need Abe to just not be... He needs to be surprised by what happens in this video, and to see the title of the video would be to give it away. So, Abe, you're just going to be listening for the next few moments, okay?
Okay.
These are two hungry teams. This is going to be a very interesting game. Back up top, Nance, a three. You can't trade baskets when you're down by double digits. Left block, picks it up for Jared Brownridge. His 3-1.
Alan Wiley is studying sports communications and media at Rowan University. That includes an internship doing color commentary at Delaware Bluecoats basketball games for his school's radio broadcast. Oh, and by the way, Alan can't see the game.
You know, he's been blind since birth. So to him, this is normal. To us, it's highly unusual to have a person be able to call a game as an analyst without seeing the action.
This is really the first time you've seen Delaware play with this type of pace, and it's paying off. I think a lot of people say just a lot of, we didn't know he could do this, or if somebody said, you know, somebody gets told that I'm blind, they may not believe it the first time. I think it's a lot of surprise and in a supportive way.
And overall, the same court, I really love how they've been playing.
Nance, right wing three, again! Pete Nance! You know, just because I don't have sight, I tend to rely more on what I hear. And that's been a big part of it for me, not only just at sporting events. Of course, I listen to the play-by-play announcer, I listen to the crowd, the basketball, bouncing up and down, and the coaches. Had open shots, found better shots is another good shot. Really, I think it's just a lot of listening and a lot of reading and just memorizing things.
This broadcast works so well because of the teamwork between Alan and his play-by-play partner, Owen, who also brings Alan to the games.
I don't really know how he does it because he takes what I say and translates it into color commentary.
JT Thor, guarded by Mintz, Hughes cuts, gets to it, and scores. They've dominated possession so far, so Delaware's really going to have to step it up. If you let him go, you're going to have problems all game long, as Delaware's found out the hard way.
So, as a broadcaster, on my end in this situation, what I have to do is just make sure to describe the play as clear as possible, not only for the listeners, but also for him.
Okay.
All right. Hey, the title of this video is Blind College Student is a Color Commentator for Sports Radio Broadcasts. And
that's what the video is about.
I have some questions. The first of which is, does this explain why I've been complaining about color commentators on the television for so long? Have they all been blind this whole time?
I understand that the other senses are heightened when you lack one, but come on. So he's just listening to what his partner is saying, describing the game, and then he just gives some analysis of that, like, oh, LeBron for the three, like, oh, LeBron having a great game. Is that like the gist of it? Somebody says a thing, and then you just say, well, things are looking great for this player or this team. Like, is that the gist of the color commentary?
It sounds like our blind college student color commentator does a lot of tape eating in order to know.
He like learns the game.
He can't watch the tape, but he can eat the tape in some form or fashion, obviously.
Or if you were watching, basketball is awful, so I could never. But if you have no television and you're forced to watch a football game on the ESPN app and you just have the play-by-play, I could imagine someone being able to do commentary if all you have is the play-by-play and you know the game really well.
I'm not sure there's a sport less conducive to not being able to see what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's probably
and
right.
then attempting to comment upon it, right? Like baseball, I can imagine you could just listen to what the play-by-play man is saying and be a really successful color commentator, arguably. You might need a third in the booth who can actually see.
Well, and didn't Larry Munson not be able to see anything by the end?
Yeah, by the end, he was mostly like we were getting play-by-play from Larry Munson that was actually play-by-play by the guy who was standing next to him holding binoculars and telling him what was happening on the field below. So it's somewhat related to that. I would like to...
It is 10 o'clock.
I would like to shame the people at NJ.com, which is the journalistic outlet that produced this YouTube video that I'm referencing that I for whatever reason, showed up in my Google feed as a news story, and I found the video embedded in the news story. Links, of course, in the show notes. However, the cowards at NJ.com, they turned off the comments for this video.
Although, don't you think that's a wise choice with the type of comments to be expected here?
They should have turned off the ability to have closed
comments
captions,
like what, Abe?
One can imagine many comments. I'm not going to share them here, but also I wonder if this is a 4-day-old clip, only 350 views. I'm sure the cast iron brain bump is going to put it over the top.
You should give it a like.
But that's not a lot of views.
What the fuck is going on here?
What do you mean?
I am all for the disabled community following their passion and doing jobs that are useful and important and feeling like they matter in the world. I think
they're a butt coming.
They're full human beings that deserve every bit of the happiness that they seek and find. But we should not have people who cannot see attempting to describe the world around us when so much of what's happening is visual.
Right. But this is for radio. Yeah, radio broadcast, right? So the blind person is in the same boat as the people listening to it. They don't have the visual cues.
I love that your project here is to justify this, because your project in any other context would not be to justify this. It is the fact that I brought this to you on a plate that requires that you find a justification for it.
You're limiting yourself, Bob. You got to think outside the box. This person can deliver information.
I wonder how long it would take you to notice if you didn't know.
I think this motherfucker can't see anything. Fucking 5 minutes of listening. I guarantee it.
His partner doing a lot of the heavy lifting. He's driving this kid around. He's having to explain everything. I mean, kudos to that dude.
You once on your other podcast, The Biffler, you had a segment. It was called Little Known Fact or Little Known Fiction. I've got numerous problems with it. The first of which is that it's just a fucking ripoff of whack shit or wacky shit, and it's poorly titled relative to whack shit or wacky shit.
Entirely different concept. Entirely.
Definitely not exactly the same thing. But if you presented this to the boys over at the Biffler as a little known fact or little known fiction, there's a color commentator for the Delaware, whatever the fuck, basketball team who cannot see the action on the court. I imagine that would get a pretty good hoot out of those boys.
Man, that's something. I wonder if this is going to spread around the nation.
Maybe in Kamala Harris's America,
Right.
Abe, but this is not something that we're going to put up with in Trump's America. Right. I hope. Anyway, I found that story particularly amusing. Real quick,
any chance? Steve Hartman does the soft pieces for CBS. Do you think in a few months this will become a thing? A piece on CBS, one of the morning shows on the weekend?
Can we get Mark Strassmann?
Oh, that would be that would be even better.
Sadly, Mark Strassmann this week is not on the blind color commentary beat, but he is in Wisconsin, and he is in a diner.
Week 6 of President Trump shaking up and paring down the federal workforce, something that surprised even his closest supporters. We went back to a battleground state Mr. Trump narrowly won to find out how people who voted for him feel about these mass firings. Mark Strassmann has tonight's Eye in America from Wisconsin.
ABC needs corned beef hash. at Frank's Diner in Kenosha.
Here's a table, too.
The T-shirts say it all. Order what you want, eat what you get.
I want to pause it right there.
Yeah.
The T-shirt, order what you want, eat what you get, is for me a very funny, perfect distillation of MAGA in a way that they simply would not tolerate the moment that it actually came home to roost.
That's right.
Right? Like I'm wearing an offensive T-shirt that is designed to offend, and then you see someone in a hijab or something,
Right.
and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and you've got a eat my shit, it's a free country T-shirt on, and then you see somebody in a hijab or with a Biden bumper sticker, and you're like, we don't put up with your kind around here. But like the order what you want, eat what you get is a terrific slogan that everyone in this diner probably thinks, man, I come to this place because they wear T-shirts that say order what you want, eat what you get, and I guarantee you that it's just a bunch of fucking Karens who send their order back the moment something is very slightly wrong.
That's right.
We wanted a conversation with supporters of President Trump.
Do you support the downsizing?
Absolutely. About the White House drive to shrink American government. We got what we ordered.
They're spending all our money.
Okay.
And there's too many people in there.
Okay.
Do I need to
this
pause
old
for
person,
Lori?
this ancient person complaining that there are too many people? Yeah?
Are you suggesting that she should just kill herself, Lori?
I'm suggesting that she's the problem.
And when they talk about waste and fraud and abuse, you believe that's going on?
Oh, hell yes.
Why Kenosha, Wisconsin? It's a purple city in a purple state. Donald Trump won Battleground, Wisconsin last November, but just barely, by a single point.
He won Kenosha County by 6 points.
The war is costing us billions of dollars.
In the back of Frank's, we found this reunion of former factory workers.
Show of hands, how many of you guys voted for Trump?
There's a moment there.
Yeah.
He says, show of hands, who voted for Trump? I think it's 5 guys. 4 of them raised their hands. The 5th, his hand is on the table, and he puts it under the table, right? He's like, because Strassmann's like, show of hands, and he takes that very literally.
Yes.
He hides his hands under the table in that moment.
Let there be no doubt.
All but one.
Among them, Eric Davidson, who believes many government agencies and workers accomplish little.
Are you doing your job, or are you just making paper airplanes?
And you think there are a number of government employees who are flying paper airplanes?
Yeah, I'm just going to come in here and put my time in and get my pension and go out.
Abe, question.
Yes.
How many paper airplanes did you
I need
make
it in
today?
an email. I need it in an email
I
by
demand
the end
to
of
know.
tomorrow.
It wasn't one of the bullets we included in our response.
Bruce Wilson is the only one at the table who didn't vote for Trump.
When you hear this conversation, do you agree with them, these guys?
In some respects, I do.
So the idea of shrinking government, do you support that?
Clearly, if there's waste, there should be some shrinkage there.
What hits home for the people we met in Kenosha, Trump's repeated message.
Fraud, waste, abuse, fraud, waste, abuse.
Fraud, waste, abuse, fraud, waste, abuse. Just hearing that over and over again seems to have resonated.
Yes, and that repetition is very persuasive.
At Northwestern University, Professor Eric Nisbet studies public opinion and strategic messaging.
You know, a lot of people judge the veracity of information by how often they hear it. It's not proof, it's allegations, but that's enough for people.
In a recent Reuters Ipsos national poll, 42% of Americans support Trump's push to downsize government. Still, 53% oppose it, including Democrat Steve Farrell.
Are you worried that services could be cut back?
I'm really worried about that more than anything, yes.
And which services are you most worried about being cut back?
Mail, for one, Social Security services, Medicare, Medicaid, all of them.
But in this converted railroad car, many of the customers we met simply feel the president is on the right track.
He's getting rid of a lot of corruption.
Have you seen any proof of corruption?
Well, not me myself, but I can see it throughout the news on both sides.
They're generally eating up what's happening in Washington, even if proof is not on the menu. For Eye on America, Mark Strassmann in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
All right, Abe. Did Mark Strassmann, CBS News' senior national news correspondent, get off a good one?
I would say yes.
Strassmann gets off a good one.
I mean, he had we got what we ordered earlier, and then he ended it strong, but mostly pretty uneven segment.
No. Do they not have any sort of pudding at this diner?
Yeah, I thought he was going to go
there. They couldn't just for a day? Seriously.
Yeah.
That's a missed opportunity.
It was right there.
Converted rail car diner, and he's on the right track.
Proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, it seemed like
But
that's
he said
where
there's
he was
no
going.
proof at this diner. He should at least say there's no proof or pudding.
We are a nation just fucking chock full of fat, stupid motherfuckers, is my conclusion from watching The Eye on America with Mark Strassmann this week.
Who was it that said, I don't know if it was a comedian or somebody from Europe, that like Americans eat as if they have like free health insurance. And it sometimes tracks. It's like you eat as if you can just go to the hospital and get it fixed. Also, to simplify these, let's ask the people, a couple of months after they made a decision, if you just reworded it, it would be basically like, were you wrong? And like people never want to say that they were wrong, especially if something this recent, maybe like a few years down the road, if everything goes sideways, they're like, yeah, I kind of fucked that up. But they
don't. People instead change they changed
it's like
what they
said.
did. Yeah. People say, I didn't vote for Trump. I was a Biden supporter, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Abe also is the one who said, write down your opinions.
Right, yeah. Just if you like laminate your opinions, just write it somewhere and keep it. Yeah.
I had to use that on my boss the other day when he was not making any sense. He was like, put this here and put this here and put this here. And I said, I will do that after I go do this other thing if you write it down.
Yeah.
And the smile on his face of like, no, you're right, I am full of shit, aren't I? It's like, yeah, you can't write it down, can you? It's completely impossible, illogical. I had to use Abe's tactic. Write it down.
Anything else out there in the world that you wanted to comment upon this week in the news, Abe? I found myself so frustrated with the Sunday shows that I was skipping segments that were not related to the Ukraine stuff because, like, I'm sorry, I cannot listen to another 8 minutes about Elon and Doge right now.
Yeah.
Like, none of it fucking matters compared to this. And the fact that this is all happening, like, a month in, right? What are we, 5-6 weeks in to this administration? Like, it felt like there was that weird fucking normie optimism from the Republican side about how, oh no, everything's going to be fine. Like, and nobody was really freaking out. I think in part because we didn't really have a president in Biden for the last few months there, and especially because it felt like Trump was sort of he'd taken on the mantle of the presidency a little bit early, and it was like things were sort of fine because he wasn't actually in power yet, so it couldn't be total fucking chaos. But it sort of felt like he was already in power because he was on TV all the fucking time and Biden wasn't around.
We were all resigned.
But like just 5-6 weeks into this now, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like if this is the sort of destabilization that we can expect over the next 4 fucking years, like to have this thing happen, the thing that happened on Friday, happen just a month in, it's like, what the fuck are we in for here moving forward?
Whenever baseball opens up, there's like some player that hits a couple of home runs, and they're like, "Oh, this person's on pace for like 300 home runs or whatever," right?
Right.
Which is not possible. Like Trump is like on that pace. Like he opened like with just it's like chaos on steroids, and he was president before. That's the thing. So it's not like this is the first go. This is the second go, and it's like even more chaotic, and you can't really predict what comes next. It's just going to be more chaos.
Yeah. All right. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com, where you can find more from us, including especially the Billboard Hot 100 game this week, featuring a battle between 2025 and 2010. And I must say, spoilers, the present does not acquit itself particularly well or memorably this week, as is often the case. The opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. For more from Mark. Abe, did you make it to the movies this week?
I did not make it to the movies this week.
Jeez, Abe.
So, I was thinking, not a lot was going on in the theaters. I'm sure I'll catch up this week, but I was behind on some movies related to the Oscars, which was this past weekend on Sunday. and one of them was Emilia Perez. It was nominated for 13 Oscars. I've heard it wasn't very good.
13 Oscars? It must be one of the greatest movies ever made, Abe.
One would think. But I can't recommend watching it because it's not a good movie, but just by virtue of the fact that it was nominated that many times, I think it only ended up winning 2 of the 13, so it wasn't shut out. But the movie just is not good.
Is it the only movie in history to lose 11 Oscars?
No.
It must be up there. I'm sure. I haven't looked it up. I don't know what the record is, but
isn't 13 the record number of nominations?
13 is either tied for the record or is the record. And I can't imagine a movie getting more than that.
Right, and Titanic won more than 2.
Yeah, and I think one of the Lord of the Rings, swept. But as far as 13, so the movie, it's a musical. It's in a different language, strike 1 and strike 2, and it's basically this drug lord in Mexico who's like, hey, enough of this. I want to become a woman, and so he's transitions.
I've seen it described as El Chapo becomes a chick,
yes,
and turns out to be a much better person.
Yes, so that's what I was like. You know what? All of this, you have to be a very callous and evil person to be an effective cartel person, right? You got to kill people and do all this stuff. And
No. This wasn't a bad person. This was a bad dick.
that's literally what happened. Because as soon as the transition happens, all of a sudden a better person, the past catches up, there's some kids involved. They want the whole thing is just a mess. I don't understand.
I didn't do that. That was some man.
A credible argument one can make. But sometimes you'll watch a movie, and even if you don't like it, it's like a well-made movie, and you can see why there's all of these award nominations. And
I've heard it's a total pile of shit.
This one was much closer to a total pile of shit. So I was thinking, and one of the lead actor, they got into some hot water over some posts she made.
They did a lot of racism back in the day.
A little racism, and it kind of derailed the campaign for the award season. I do wonder if that did not happen, would it have fared better on Oscar night? Right? Did that derail enough to where it only got 2 instead of maybe 5 or 6? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's still the same shitty movie, regardless of the past tweets, right? So
this is the one that Zoe Saldana won for.
Yeah, she
correct?
won. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing that I heard was that this is a piece of shit movie, but Zoe Saldana is awesome in it, and that's about it.
Yeah, she was good in it. So I wasn't surprised by that. But the movie just did not work. Also, old man Gene Hackman died, and so I will say about these streaming services like Netflix. Usually when somebody of prominence dies, there's going to be a little uptick in the viewing of the movie.
The old death bump.
Hide the shitty movies, Netflix. So I looked at the offerings on Netflix, and there was Runaway Jury, which I've already seen, and Under Suspicion, which I have not. Or maybe I just memory hold it, but it was Gene Hackman.
Runaway Jury is a John Grisham book adaptation, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that fucking book when I was 12 or whenever it came out.
The other movie, Under Suspicion, with Morgan Freeman. I'm thinking Morgan Freeman and Gene Hackman. How bad of a movie can it be?
Oh, he does bad movies all the time.
He does, yes. And this was... I'd like to see the script. The way the movie unfolds is that Gene Hackman is a wealthy, lawyer, well-to-do in Puerto Rico. And he... Is he
also kind of a charming asshole?
He's a bit of a charming. I think it's he's married to Monica Bellucci when she was back in the day, and and he happens upon
those two people are not of the same.
No, they're not. And this is a 25-year-old movie, and Gene Hackman was old then. He'd been old forever, but Gene Hackman's character happens to find a dead body, on a run. He's just out there on a run and say, oh, shit, what's this, a dead body? Reports it. He thinks everything is fine. Morgan Freeman's hey, what the fuck? What's going on with that dead body? And his story, his alibi falls apart. First, he's running with a dog. And no, the dog wasn't with you. He's okay, never mind the dog. I was just running and I happened to see this dead body. And eventually, he can't account for.
Okay. I was running away from a body that had very recently died. I might have had some interaction with it.
And I also know the kid who's dead, and I'm a pedophile. Like, his story just unravels. And I'm like, okay, this is an open and shut case. He admits to committing the crime at the end, and then the big reveal is so the serial killer was caught while he's being interrogated. So basically, like, some sort of, like, bias that Morgan Freeman and all the detectives had against him.
He gave a false confession to being a pedophile murderer?
Right. His wife starts to disbelieve him, like, oh, this guy must be a pedophile. Look at him. So she gives authorization to search their home. It all was for naught because he was not guilty. It was a very weird movie.
I don't want to be crass here, but a man who marries Monica Bellucci in 1999 or whenever this movie was filmed.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
We're talking peak Monica Bellucci here. Is not also believably in any way. Like, I know people have beards, right?
Yeah.
They have cover stories, like the BTK killer.
Yeah.
Right? Outwardly, nice, normal family man. But sorry, he wasn't going home to Monica Bellucci. It's not a believable setup.
That should have been his argument. Are you kidding me? What do you mean? I'm killing little kids?
What else do you possibly need in the world if you're going home to 1999 Monica Bellucci?
I don't know.
And
but he
maybe she like sucks.
Yeah, I mean, they are in separate bedrooms. It's a whole thing.
Oh, see,
because he made a weird thing towards her niece. Like, I mean, he's some sort of creep. Like, I don't understand the movie. Like, this switcheroo they did at the end, they lead you to believe credibly that he is a weirdo.
We're all sort of fucking creeps in one way or another, but that doesn't mean that we are also pedo murderers.
Yes.
I think
that's true.
That
was the message of the movie. You're right, Bob.
I was trying to think of a single actor who I like more than Gene Hackman. And I have a personal bias towards Gene Hackman because of how much he reminds me of my grandfather. Physically, they look quite similar and always have. And Hackman is 10, 15 years older or something than my grandfather is. But like the 80s Gene Hackman looked a great deal like the 80s my grandfather. And so I have that sort of natural built-in bias. I like my grandfather, by the way, so it's easy transference of affection there. But also, I've loved the vast majority of the Gene Hackman movies that I've seen. I think that he is a tremendous actor who constantly gives terrific performances, even in movies that maybe aren't quite up to par. I imagine he's real good.
Oh, he's a man. I've just showed Gene Hackman's scenes. Like, they keep cutting back to something else. I was like, what are we doing here?
I couldn't think of anyone that I like more than Gene Hackman. And I think he might, like, maybe Gene Wilder. Maybe I just have a thing for Genes.
Yeah,
I also like the guy in my Little League whose name is Gene.
Look at that.
Gene's pretty good.
As it turns out. Genes are usually good, I guess. But, like, I didn't get as much Gene Wilder as I got Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman's fucking awesome. Like, I cannot think of another working actor who I think I like better. Like, I've always been charmed by Brad Pitt. And I think Brad Pitt is great, and I like most Brad Pitt movies.
Yeah.
But he's no Gene Hackman.
I like Ed Harris.
Is Gene always short, or is it ever short for Eugene?
It's short for genetic.
But Gene is a standalone name. It's not like a variation of Eugene.
No, it's short for genetic. Genetic Hackman.
I'm sure it's short for Eugene, right? Unless he's a Genevieve, and he didn't want to go with that.
Genetic.
Genetic could also work.
Enemy of the State, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When I was a kid, great movie. Fucking Unforgiven is probably in my top 5 or top 10 at the very least of movies of all time.
None of those good movies were available on Netflix. At least my subscription. It's like, hey, Under Suspicion guy, watch this. And
surely you've seen Unforgiven.
I've seen Unforgiven, but I wouldn't mind watching a good. You know, like you want to remember him fondly, and I didn't. I was like, oh boy.
Anyway, we did not catch up with any old Gene Hackman movies, although that's
we
not
were
a
very
bad
busy.
idea. Lots of baseball, lots of silliness around here. We had our player evaluations this weekend, where we watch young children perform baseball feats and then judge them and rank them according to their abilities. And it's definitely not weird at all. There's nothing weird about that.
But it's for a good purpose, right? To distribute the kids evenly.
Right. There's no other.
That is one of the purposes.
No other way to do it.
But also, these guys get kind of weird.
Oh, yeah?
They're like, I know he's only 9, but he's only 9. Imagine in a couple
in
years.
a couple of years. Look at the way he
Under
carries.
my tutelage.
Look at the way he carries himself. The way he grips that bat. That's a ball player. I mean, not yet, but in a couple of years, there might be something there.
You see the raw potential in a 9-year-old?
Yeah. What did we watch?
We watched The George.
We watched The Gorge with Anya Taylor-Joy
how was that?
and Miles Teller. That was a bad movie.
Okay.
It was bad.
As predicted.
And unfortunately, not even enjoyably bad. It was.
I had fun.
I had fun because the company was so pleasant. My old lady was there next to me.
Don't call me that.
But not a good movie.
No,
in fact, a bad movie.
It was kind of okay until like the second.
It was kind of okay for so the setup was stupid.
The setup was good.
No, because the first 5 minutes were stupid. If instead they drop you middle of the scene into him getting dropped off there, that would have been better. Like they didn't need the whole fucking
they didn't
setup.
need the first part.
If instead this, I feel like half the movies in the 80s and early 90s sort of started in a helicopter on the way to fucking somewhere, right? No prologue, just fuck.
Just here.
We're in
Here's
the
the
helicopter.
movie.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And it was fine, right? This movie should have started in that, and I know it's lame, but I'm always convinced that if you just gave me the script for a once-over, I can improve almost anything.
If you would insert yourself into the industry, they might do that. But you're just sitting here.
Yeah. Anyway.
Bob complains about the writing, and I'm constantly reminding him he could write a movie.
That's right.
Should have started mid-moment in the helicopter on the way to the gorge, but whatever. But the movie truly became a disaster when they descended into the gorge, and
it kind of worked a little until then.
It was almost working, and then
it also did it.
Was just pure CGI. Nothing actually happened, right? And it drives me nuts when it's so obvious that nothing actually happened. It has its charm when you're watching The Mandalorian, right, on your home television, and it's it's almost like. It's not quite Hitchcockian in the way you'd see a rear projection of a road as this person's in the car doing this number with the steering wheel, right?
Yeah.
And that has its charm. But for whatever reason, when it's happening in The Mandalorian, it's almost like you can see the painted sets.
There are
right?
sets.
And it's cool. It's a paint, and no, but there aren't really in Mando. It's all mostly fucking bullshit, right? It's just happening on a soundstage, and they put everything else behind him later. But when it's just this fucking pure schlock and there's just nothing to it, and it has this this schmear almost, it's this just
blue.
CGI schmear
just all blue.
over everything. I don't know what the appeal is. I don't know what it is. There's no art to it. There's no fucking life to it. It's just, here are these people playing fucking pretend, right? And that's all I see when I see these fucking movies that are nothing but CGI. It's just these two attractive people decided to play pretend, and it takes me out of it completely. And that's to say nothing that the script obviously fucking sucks also.
It was bad.
So who cares? And it is another one where we find out, in my running theory here, that we're scared of having proper bad guys anymore. The only bad guys, it's a fucking evil corporation.
Oh, there you go.
It's a defense. It's not even a government. It's a defense contractor.
Yeah.
It's just fucking Halliburton again. What is that? 3 in a row where it's happened.
We also tried to watch the Oscars, but Bob was really busy making mock drafts of the little league.
No, Lori wanted to watch White Lotus, and I was like, no, what we need to do is
No. What you said was, I can't watch that right now.
Yeah, I said I can't watch that. Lori wanted to watch White Lotus at 9:00 on Sunday. Which is the right time to watch a good HBO show, and we had to skip it because the Oscars were on.
That's not why.
But really, it was because I could not allow myself to be pulled away from my wargaming, the draft that's happening tomorrow night. I need to get ready for the fucking draft. I called up my assistant coach.
Buddy, for an hour.
An hour and 15 minutes, I was on the phone with the assistant coach talking about the relative merits of 9 to 12-year-olds in terms of their baseball abilities and also their psychological and emotional makeup.
And their families.
And their families. That's no small part of what goes into building a proper Little League baseball team.
Are these going to be brand new teams? Or is there some carryover?
I have 6 returning players, and I need to draft 6 additional players to fill out my roster.
And your pick is what? You're the first?
I have the number 1 overall pick. Because
we don't know.
Look at that.
We are not sure yet. Are we sure?
No, we're sure. I have the number 1
we're
overall
at 3?
pick.
Okay.
We're a 3-team league rather than a 4-team league. We have lost a team this season, but it's for the best.
I
lot
bet
of
you
drama.
can guess which one.
Oh, no, that team?
Yep, that team is no more.
Look at that.
It's for the best, for the good of the league and for the good of the kids. We have contracted into 3 teams.
Bigger teams?
It's going to be fine. Nope. No, we just lost a bunch of kids, so we don't. It doesn't have to be quite as big of a league either. But anyway, it should be a blast. But that's why we can't talk about the White Lotus this week. I will say we also watched on Friday night the Severance show. We're like 7 episodes into Severance now, season 2, and I think it was my least favorite episode of the show so far.
It was pretty lame.
It was bad, and it betrayed more about the underlying motivation of the show than most other episodes have so far. And what I said after watching it was, wow. This show was written by people who've been in therapy their entire lives, and don't know how to escape from it. The longer this goes on, the more this Severance show becomes an obvious critique of Scientology. I think it's fair to say this Lumen company is very much a stand-in for Scientology, and that's fine. Like, I'm all for critiques of Scientology, but also the people who write this show are so steeped in therapy culture that I think that they sort of buy a lot of what Scientology is selling, even as they're doing the Scientological critique of what's going on here. Whatever, it's fine. I'm sure that I will enjoy the rest of the show as more answers are given. It's okay for there to be a bad episode every once in a while in a show that is otherwise good. It's always disconcerting to me when the creators of something seem to maybe lose sight of what it is that we like about the something, or what it is that actually made the thing good. And what it is that made the thing good is not a long digressive exploration of how and why our main character loved his wife. Like, I'm sorry, we don't care about their relationship. Maybe we're supposed to, but we don't.
I don't care.
We just don't care about their marriage. It doesn't matter. We care about the puzzle box of the show that you built and how it all fucking works itself out.
We watched a cool YouTube video about puzzle boxes.
Oh, that's true. We did that also. Unrelated. Anyway, sorry to complain about a show that you haven't seen, in all likelihood, because I don't think anybody watches this fucking show because it's on Apple TV Plus, and who watches that shit?
We watched more Shoresy. We have 1 season and 1 episode left, and then there's a new season.
Wow. Are they? But have they called for more, or is this gonna be the last season?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't looked into it because
they're only like 20 minutes long, and there's only like 7 or 8 episodes in a season.
They're just so good.
Just keep making them. Fuck it. Fun show. Anything else we watched?
No.
All right. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
That wasn't our bullet points in our emails. Did they give you instructions on what to send?
So the latest thing is basically like this is going to be an every week thing, but you can't say anything.
You got to be fucking kidding me.
This is not some. So it's these two conflicting instructions. One is every week And also, you can't say anything that's revealing. And
why are they willing to play this game about accountability as though your supervisors aren't already making sure that some fucking shit is getting done?
I don't know. It's just like a show thing. It's like, all right, yeah, we could easily do this thing. It's not a big thing. But if you were actually asking, like, you can't actually share because of all of the restrictions on what you can tell. So it ends up being some very vague, like, collaborated with teams on some messaging or something. Like,
okay.
But this is the point. Now they're going to have 100 million emails 6 months from now, where 100 million fucking employees said, "Well, I did the thing that I'm supposed to do," where we chatted on the company Slack and fucking figured it out. It's like, what are these people doing all day?
That's
fucking vague bullshit, as it turns out. Because that's the only thing that you're permitted to explain to them that you're doing.
Right. If that's the plan, then it's going to work. Because basically, it's like it's been reduced to like meaningless words on an email. Like, this is not anything. I think it's going to be one of those, like, after the third week, people are just going to stop sending them, and no one's going to notice, because it's like millions of emails are going out every week. No one's, I mean, unless the AI machine sucks it all in and does something with it.
Of course.
What did you do last week? Well, I spent fucking 30 minutes writing this email about what I did last week. This is neither here nor there. In my Google Messages, I had texted to somebody associated with the Little League, "All right if I call." I asked, "Are you able to chat?" And she said yes, but I wasn't sure if she thought I meant over text. So I said, "Is it okay if I call right now?" And instead of responding, she just called me.
Yeah.
But in my Google Messages, it says there's like you can't really see, but there's like that follow. It says sent yesterday. Follow up is the generated thing that Google wants me to do here. It's like, but this is where the robots don't have the power that they imagine they do. The phone knows that I was on the phone with her for 20 minutes within 30 seconds of me sending that text message. But it's not, this is like pre-9/11 technology here, where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Fucking get it together, phone. I was on this device for 20 minutes on the phone with the person who you want me to follow up with. Whatever, a stupid fucking machine.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.